and the keynote of Lida, if I may so, we'll close our today's conference. I think it has been a very intensive program for all of us. I hope so. I hope also that you find some interesting points for each of you. And finally, we have with us Lida. Lida, she is a specialist in vet and social inclusion. And at this moment, she is country desk of Serbia and Turkey at European Training Foundation since 2002. Lida works as specialist in vocational education and training and social inclusion at European Training Foundation, an European agency. From 1993 to 2001, she worked as education and social sector program officer at the World Bank office at Tirana, Albania. Before that, Lida has been teacher in a college and lecturer at University of Tirana. She is also a textbook author and a curriculum expert of the Ministry of Education and Science. Her main areas of expertise are public policy, management, education and training, health and social inclusion. Lida graduated from the University in Tirana, and she has also a master in public policy and management from the Center for Financial Management Studies, SOAS, University of London, and a master in the management of development from ILUS Turin University. So it's a pleasure to have you among us, and we also hope that these days we are every hour, every time here with us, and it's a great pleasure to listen to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I first want to thank the Universidade Aberta for inviting me as an individual, but the institution that I represent. As I said, we are an EU agency, and I'll take only 5 minutes to explain where we work and how we work. It won't be a key speech. I like to have dialogue with people. It will be more a reflection, how we see things and how the education and training system enables the inclusion of individuals and communities. But I want to say that for me, it's the biggest pleasure to be among you, because in these 2 days, I've heard and I've listened and I've discussed and seeing all the things that you do in the field. Because it's different. We come from an institution that we look at the policies, at the system. And yes, we talk about the practices. Yes, we talk what happens in the field. Yes, we look at good cases, but we are not the doers. No, you are the ones that keep the system alive, and you are the ones that work directly with the people. And for me, and for us, this is the biggest learning. Also, I would like to reflect on some of the things that I've heard. I apologize, all my learning is looking at the PowerPoint on the English side, because I don't understand Portuguese and Spanish, but among people and among practitioners, even without a language, you can understand all the enthusiasm and the love for what they do. For me, that has reached me a lot. And I want for us, looking at your cases, it's very important, because hearing, and especially, for example, we don't work with Brazil, no? And for me, it was an enrichment, or Capo Verde, not to look at what the other countries are doing outside our remit. And you see that the issues are the same. It doesn't matter geographically where we stay or where we work, it's just what we do. And that for me was very enriching to see all the innovation that is happening at the community level, at the school level, training at the universities and research. Now, as you explained, we are, okay. So we are the EU agency, and we are the technical part of the Commission, Brussels. Now, some of you, since you are EU, most of you are from the EU member states, might know about CEDAPOP, which is based in Thessaloniki, which is the same kind of sister agency that works with the EU member states. We work with the neighboring countries. And you'd say, but where is the interest that you will have with our countries? It's because we look at not only at the countries' policies and the developments, but we look at the EU member states, the Commission frameworks, but also what each and every EU member state do within their education and training system to learn, to create bridges among countries and professionals at all levels, from politicians to the people in the school, and also to create networks and platforms from each other. So that's our role. And these are the countries we work. Just I've given the map for you to understand. So we have a variety of countries. There are 30 countries that we cover. And we have Southern and Eastern Mediterranean. We have Southern Eastern Europe and Turkey, what we call the Western Balkans and Turkey, Eastern Europe and Central Asia. As you can see, it's very diverse. And it's diverse geographically, but it's diverse also socio-economically, and also the developments of these countries, and also the systems that they have. Some of them very centralized system, education and training systems, and some of them very decentralized systems. So we have a big diversity. Nowadays, when I started to work in education and training, and as you heard, I come from the school, I come from university, so I have gone around the whole cycle of the system, and now we work on the policies. It was not so much talking about what type of school we should have. The school was taken for what it was, at least in those countries. No, what were they delivering? It was a social construction of the individual. With all these decades, you see that the discussions have widened a lot, because the school cannot do it alone, being it the school or the university. And nowadays, in the 21st century, a lot of countries are talking about the DNA of school. What is the DNA of school, of learning and teaching? And the whole countries are looking into who are the stakeholders? Is it just the ones that provide the teaching and the one that learns? Or it's whoever is around, being it from the community, from the parents, and being it the employers. Before, we were not discussing so much about the business being involved in the schools, apart from just providing funds or providing of the association. So the whole ecosystem of the learning and teaching is developing. Of course, in different countries is different, the setups are different, but we and all your examples showed that nothing can be done alone. And this is becoming stronger and stronger. Now, I'm not going to talk what we do. What I get from you and from your examples, and why we think, and you expressed yourself, how much Erasmus, and you explained about Erasmus, which has been a big progress. And Erasmus is a very big provider and supporter. And you explained yesterday very well, and I hope there are systems, I mean, there's dissemination, what people can do with Erasmus. And it has been very successful thanks to you and to people like you, enthusiast people, that you use it, that for the second round, it's doubled the amount. And it's a plea for people to use more. Now, Also, I have a question for you, which whenever you can interrupt and interact, from all this reflection and looking at all the good cases that are presented and these exchanges, being it at policy level, at practice, at academic level, and student mobility, would you have been able to do the same things if Erasmus was not there? It's not a provocative question, it's just to think. We as individuals in the given institution we are placed, can we do things alone? Is it because the system is very rigid? Is it because we need to look at our other peers outside our small domain to see how they are doing things, how we can join efforts? And by taking part in this Erasmus program, I have another question because I saw really very innovative experiences, what you are doing. Will this be able to influence the policies? I go back to the policies because it's one thing what you are doing at your school and being it at the formal education, because there were sessions with the formal education, there were sessions with an informal education, there were with the lifelong learning provision that is given. So are all these great examples, which are researched, and among you there are researchers, the universities, that look at all the good cases and you look into the detail in the pedagogy and the outcomes, are they influencing the bigger picture of the policies and the delivery of the system? I don't need an answer, but it's all for us to reflect. Now, we, as I explained, we work in vocational education and training, and we work in the formal, non-formal, and also lifelong learning, but we look at the whole cycle. Now, in all the discussions that we had here, but also everywhere, it's part of the system that caters for marginalized groups, for people that due to different circumstances, socioeconomic circumstances, and some of them are old, some of them are new. For example, I work a lot with immigrants, with refugees in Turkey, and we're talking of 4 million refugees. No? What I'm trying to say that the system, the people, the individual, we look sometimes, we use this language, marginalized people, people with difficulties, people, while we would like to say it's individual with all its complexity. Yes, we need to recognize the difficulties that individuals and the community has in a given moment, but not to blame, not to name. It's to see it in the system and to cater the education and training system for the individual needs. And this is what we see in the policies, I'm talking now, that there is a rigidity there. And thanks to your work that you do in this provision, in the lifelong learning and all the open university, which is open to everybody for individuals to decide what career they want to follow, what things they learn, they can make it the system more flexible. And that's a big lesson that I learned and I saw here, thanks to your work. Now, I would have loved, but I couldn't, also for the Roma, because in the countries we work also big group, which is underperforming, is the Roma community, but it's not only. It's also ethnicity, the groups, and it's the language, different groups, apart from the people that are coming from the poor backgrounds. But not only that, if we look at the VET system, the formal one, the system is failing the individuals. We have the needs, what we call neither in education nor in employment, and also EU member states, depending on the countries, they have different, some have very high rates and some have a lower rate. But also in the system, it's when you look at what you are providing, my question is, are these remedial, means that trying to recorrect the system, to do what the system itself, the formal one, could not provide to the individual? I'm just asking, you know best. Or is also for ones that want to have, that for different reasons couldn't continue their studies and what they wanted, they are doing it now. I think it's both. We can't neglect, and Keith is over there, maybe he doesn't agree with me, but it's the system, the formal system, lets down a high percentage of the young people to get the skills that they need, not just for the employment, for getting a job. It's to be a citizen, to have the social skills, civic skills, and to be able to manage the life. So I would like to hear more from you. Now, these are all the things that you know. I'm not going to go, but I put it that just to remind ourselves. And we look at the systems because the school itself has changed. Before, and we saw some models, the German model, and we saw the academia, no? Here in Lisbon, where they said that the program is the employers, that they train the people, and they train the people for the skills to do this certain job. Now, we know, and you expressed yourself, how much the labor market is changing. And we are all talking now the future of jobs. And for certain things we can predict, we know, and we are talking of Revolution 4, and we are talking of forecasting, and we are talking of skills forecasting, but some countries can do to a certain extent, some sectors can do, economic sectors, not all. Because also at this moment, we don't know what will be the future of jobs. Now, does it mean that we have to be fatalistic? Because we don't know, we don't do anything? Or we have to foresee what are the key skills that are needed for the individual to navigate in this ever-changing market, the labor market. And you know better than me, because at the European level, we have, I'm just listing here, I've put, look at all these frameworks. We talk about 21st century skills. We talk about digital competence framework for citizens. We saw also projects. We talk about entrepreneurship competence framework. We talk about digital skills for Europe, and we have all the national skills coalitions. We have pledges to provide training to the individuals. And we have also the Entracom, and I can list all the frameworks that are there, which they are frameworks, because education in each country, it's a national domain, it's not. It's for the countries to look at all these frameworks and how to adapt or to pick up from these frameworks what they think the skills of the young people or the individuals can be. And this is the basic, we think, that you don't have any more a division, general education like it was before, vocational education. Now everything is fluid. You need the skills, the key skills for these upcoming jobs. Now, I will leave it, but in some of the cases, and I picked here, we were talking about how schools are linked with the industry. They are linked with the public employment offices. And now, if you look at all the programs, and we look at all the programs that are run in the different parts, it seems that there is a lot of overlapping. I don't know what you think as people in the... There is a lot of overlapping, which is great because it brings diversity and but there is a need to have a more cohesive approach in how we teach the individuals and the youth for the skills that they need. Because we all know that we live in the time that money is not just like that. And that's why I put that question. Could you do the same things wherever you are if you didn't have this Erasmus program? For example, could you be able to exchange with each other so much, to learn from each other, if you didn't have this extra worth support? And I don't want to take your time, we can discuss, but for me it was more a reflection on what I've heard from you, and I would like to hear from you as practitioners, as academics, researchers, how we can make it in a different way, or how much we can influence, and what is the way of creating the right framework for the young people to get the skills, not only for today, but to have the skills, the flexible skills that through extra support they can use in their life. And there are different models, and the models are according to your context and where you work. I can see Keith, he wants to reflect, and you might intervene, because with Keith I have worked before. In all these countries, we look at the social inclusion, and we look at the education of teacher training, and in-service and pre-service teacher training for an inclusive approach. Keith, I would like to hear your views, but at least at the European level and where we are, these are the discussion in our domain. Is the future of jobs, the future of skills. Do we know how the present schools will be able to provide, being it formal, non-formal, and informal, to provide for the individuals, communities, young people, and all these different groups with different needs to get not just employment, and that's where we say it's for their life. So Keith, what would you say something?
You cannot escape.
No, not from me, he knows that. He can have a different reflection.
I didn't realize this was a joint presentation. No, I'm very pleased actually to be here with Lida again, who's a former colleague. Since then, I joined UNESCO. I'm here unofficially, but I do work for UNESCO. And one of the things that we're looking at is not only, one of the things we're looking at is not only at how systems can include marginalized or vulnerable groups, but the question would be, how can the marginalized and vulnerable groups also change the nature of the system, or even change the future of their own societies? So this would be, for me, another step further forward from saying, well, now, what skills would somebody need to be able to navigate a changing labor market? It's another step to say, what skills does somebody need to change the nature of the future labor market, to make a difference, in the interests of whichever vulnerable or marginalized group it might be. So seeing not only learners and the education system as responding to changes in society, but also having a proactive agency in the future of society.
I don't know if anybody else want to make some comments, open the discussion. Yes, just when Lida was showing these documents that that European Commission has produced, mainly the documents about digital competencies. I have gone through these documents, and none of these documents explicits the importance of distance education, for example, in the digital for digital competencies. So, and we know that our students, for instance, in university, that our students became more competent for the digital society when they work with us. We have several studies that show that when they compare with their other colleagues at the professional places where they work, they feel more confident and more competent working with digital tools than their colleagues. But it was surprising for me to see that these documents don't mention explicitly distant education, online education, because it's the context that sometimes I think that these documents, we are talking about policies, these documents forget that is the context that develops the competencies. The competencies don't are developed for themselves. And some educational contexts are more powerful to develop some competencies, for instance, digital competencies.
Now, I wanted also, because from different cases we looked at, and I raised, I think, yesterday, in all this provision, being it, as I said, open universities or open education, formal, non-formal, informal, all the skills in the context that is gained by the individual, how is it recognized? Now, you'll say, do we need to recognize it? We might like it or not like it. I think we need to recognize it if we want to give a pathway, if individuals, they want to ability to go either to work or to do something else or to go further to the, from your experience, how much from all the great examples that you gave is recognized, this formal, non-formal, informal learning, but also I saw a lot on your examples, teachers that are very active. I was in the session where majority were teachers. How much this is recognized for their professional development in their career? Because the teachers themselves, they gain a lot. And with all these experiences, they are all pluses in their professionalism. And are they recognized? Are they part of the teacher or trainers' competencies recognized by the institutions? That's another thing that we look at. How, from your experience?
Normally, they are not required. Usually, you can be a teacher, even if an adult. You can be an adult teacher, even if I need. Oh, yeah, okay. You can be an adult teacher and a teacher for adult education without any experience in the field. And furthermore, if I want to go out from the field of adult education, I go everywhere, but my previous experience is not recognized. Oh, no.
The Italian system is quite different from the British system. We have no current evaluations system of assessment of teachers. And so experience, knowledge, good practices of teachers are not recognized in their career. If you want to share your research, you can go, you can do it freely as a freelance, okay, as I am. And if you find something noticeable, you write it, you look for a publisher, you publish it, and you share your things this way, okay? Thank you.
Well, hello. Here in Portugal, we have an assessment system for teachers, since the basic to the university. But another thing is the culture of evaluation, which is also very different from country to country. And in some countries, the culture of evaluation is very related to sanções with cautions. That is another place. So there is that vision that if you are assessed, you will be in some way punished in one hand, which is in some ways true, because sometimes the assessment just cut it even without any good explanation. I can give you examples of it later on, but not now. On the other hand, it's also the compensation of the assessment that is related with money. We grow in the salary and with another social benefits, just that recognition and stuff like that. But I think we also need to put in perspective that evaluation sometimes can be a way to format people and to block the creativity of people, and that I think we can see it in very different ways and according to the level of education. For instance, in the university is in one way, in the secondary level is in another way. For instance, I have high school teachers that they just gave up of any innovative and problem-centered teaching methods because they need to prepare for the exams that then the exams, they give access to the university and other things. So I think that the evaluation process, it's a very cultural and process that we need to think about, because of course I recognize the importance of evaluation. But in this kind of model, punishment and
Reward.
And reward, punishing reward, this is not for me, and from what I learned from society, this is not a good model of evaluation.
Anybody else who is from the teacher's point of view that they would reflect on that? Because also we hear a lot now about teachers. We say some countries are different. Also, they have issues with teachers, because also in some countries, teaching is not considered a profitable job, and the young people, some countries are having difficulties to recruit to become teacher students. And you have an older generation of teachers that they were trained in a different way, where there are demands for the retraining and reskilling the teachers to be able, as facilitators, not the ones that they control the class and they speak and the rest, but facilitators, which is completely facilitators of knowledge. And this is completely a different way of teaching. And this is another issue that we hear from our countries, which teacher professional development, it's becoming it's becoming a big necessity, but it's not given enough attention for helping the teaching troop or the teaching staff to acquire these new skills. Again, it remains on the individuals, how willing they are, how much they can do. But then, as you said, Darlina, also, if you don't have support, then it comes a time that some people give up. And this is something which has become as a big issue the teacher professional development in a lot of countries, and it's not just in the EU member states, but also in our countries, it's a big issue. So I don't know if different countries here have different experiences.
Short reply. This problem is a problem, a common problem in states where the assessment of teacher is like a punishment. I mean, Great Britain, the United Kingdom. They are in a shortage of teacher in every subjects, okay, and is linked to assessment, evaluation of the work the teacher. And so, by contrast, in Italy, we have the free of teaching, constitutionally, which protect us from any interference from the head teacher as well. Okay, and so the difficulty of recruitment is linked, in my opinion, to some kind of assessment, evaluation, interference from the politics.
Okay, thank you. And Keith, do you have another approach on the teachers that you look at, since it's a system-wide approach, and how you... It's nice to hear another view, no? From
No, there are questions now around, who changes, So in the past, it was everybody fitting in with whichever formal or non-formal program is being provided. So it wasn't really about teachers adjusting and adapting and understanding the needs of students. And that's a serious change and a serious challenge. For example, just to take one example of mother tongue instruction, how to cater for groups of students that have different languages. Then what would that mean, for the role of the institution, the program, or the teacher? And not only an individual teacher, but the whole policies for recruiting and training teachers.
Sorry to intervene again, but this makes me think. I think that the education landscape is really changing a lot. And I think that here we had that the opportunity to see it. Because in one local and for learning something is in one way. And the teachers or the persons who have the possibility to teach are not only the teachers in the regular system. So I think that there is the problem that we need to recognize these different systems and also to be aware of them. And this links with the first issue, at least that I hear, I'm sorry, as well late here, which is the recognition of the competence that people already had, and the formal and the informal and no formal ways of learning. I mean, it's a very community can learn a lot with the community, but where is the certification for that? And our society relies a lot on certification. So, I mean, this is a circle sometimes, but there is lots of different ways and trajectories for learning different things. And today they are in the playground, all of them.
Anybody has another view on that, on the teacher? No. Now, I mean, I leave the floor to you, but I wanted another thing to ask you. How do you choose your partnership for the Erasmus? That's a plea. I see it. I'm being now very from the institutional point of view, because we have the countries that we work with, and they want to partner with the EU member states, no? And what experience do you have outside the EU member states? Because I see that you group or you call, what are the hints that we can learn? How do you create this partnership for joining efforts for program, Erasmus program or project? How does it work for you from your experience? Who calls the show?
Perhaps, I love Erasmus international programs because I think the solution for these very big problems is working with links, working in team, knowing other points of view, and is easier to focus on this topic, knowing different perspective. And you need to know what is happening in Turkey or in other countries, not only watching TV and the media and so on. And the face-to-face interaction is fundamental. And for instance, you need to know the things what happen in the street, not only in the academical institution, not only in the university or in the schools. You need to go and love these places, because after going there, you can contact with women, with people, with a person with the real problems. So I think this kind of programs, not only Erasmus, there are more,
many more, yes.
And with very big opportunities, not only for academical or very big institutions, opportunities for ONGs, opportunities for little associations, for town halls, for a lot of small communities who can go, who can know, who can share other points of view. To solve these very big problems, knowing the real situation in the street, not only at a very high level. So for me, I love this way to solve a solution.
Maybe other people can give their, since you all are taking part in these programs.
Yes, here in the university, there is different ways how these partnerships appear. For instance, in some partnerships, there was a previous knowledge among the people concerning other issues that were that people were working together. But for me, Erasmus is really an important program that makes people together. For instance, I went to just to give a personal example. I went last year. I went to a staff exchange and a staff week. It's open to who wants to participate, and it was an opportunity to make some contacts and mainly to find people that are interested in the same topics that you are. So it was the beginning for other partnerships. I didn't know these people, but it was doing to Erasmus that I knew these people and that we could work in other contexts. So I really think that Erasmus, I was not a student, Erasmus student, because at my time it was not, we didn't have this opportunity. But at this moment, for students, but also for people that work in different contexts, is a very important program that make people work together. I think answering to your almost first question, if we think that without Erasmus we could be so many people put together, I don't think so. I think that without Erasmus, for instance, I could not knew so many people as I knew at this moment and have partnerships with these people. Yes, because it's that situation, and of course it's not a question, only a question of money, but it's also a question of money, because it is this opportunity that creates conditions to put people together. And of course, we can put together and together. For instance, we are in a partnership with a group that we were in a previous project. In this new project, we knew other new partners, and with these other new partners, we are building other partnerships. This is a kind of network that enlarges and enlarges. And I think the Erasmus, for me, it's a very important program in Europe. So if there is, if at the policy level it is understood as an important program, I'm very happy that they think
I mean,
true.
it's what people have
Yes.
asked, the people like
Again.
yourself that have been part of it.
Yes, yes.
And perhaps right now Erasmus is a idea to open the European philosophy, the European iba a decir política, or European way of life, more or less. For instance, for Turkey, because I have a lot of people from Turkey who want to go through Erasmus to Spain and so on. And Erasmus is open not only for European countries, it's open for all the countries of the world, because right now we are making business. We are teaching students in all the world, in all the, every country needs make links with other students from other countries and so on. So we can right now make programs, make active projects and so on with countries from South America, from Africa, from other continents without problem. We have European community, I think, enough money to solve these kind of activities, to make this kind of conference or teaching activities or creating materials and so on. And it's a good chance. I think it's fantastic, the model, the template of Erasmus.
I think there was a... Yes, please.
Thank you. I used to say that I grew up with Erasmus because I have the chance, one of the most beautiful opportunities in my life to do Erasmus with 19 years old. And then when I start my professional life, all the institutions where I've been, I also try to involve in Erasmus projects. And this gives us to all the opportunity to learn with the other countries, to see that the problems are quite similar sometimes, but the solutions are more effective and more supported if they are shared and if they grow from with the ideas of all of us, because when we look at our problem, we are so involved in our problem that sometimes we have difficulty to look outside the box. And for us, for example, for my institution, for the adult center where I work, it's a great help to have a different look from outside, because it helps us to see the problem from another way. And this can provide us the opportunity to think better and in more efficient solutions.
Thank you. These are great reflections to hear from the people using it. So now with this project, will you look at all the cases that were presented, analyzing them, or that's it? So for example, are there more to see, not just the numbers that you have outreached, but what kind of impact and change and continuity, not just what the project did, but what kind of continuity and or sustainability of what you have achieved will be able? Do you look within this program, and do you analyze how does it work?
Perhaps the European community has a target to make solutions, real solutions, make evidences of our outcomes to impact in the society, and not only write articles, not only to make theoretical lessons, because Europe thinks we need to solve these problems in the street, problems with real people, with real questions. So for right now, for our project, we need to list, to write down all the solutions after this project for the society. All the solutions involved in Italian solution, educational scenarios, solution at our teachers, my university, or solution in home adult school education, because the money, the amount of money is not very big, but it's enough if we are working with a efficient strategy. So it's a good way to list, put all the small solutions in a very big amount of projects like our project. Probably there is a specific solution for this problem. We are sharing different points of view, different good practices, because this project is a project sharing different good practices, but using a unique special solution. So sharing.
Thank you. For me, it was a big learning. So I'm not, but I might bother you if other countries want to link up with you, and then you decide if you accept or not. But you don't mind if I can give context, if other people in the other countries, or how does it work for partners? So that's a very, if you allow, if you don't allow, it's to link up to, if they want to.
Yes, it's very, it will be very interesting. Yeah.
I have a question for
Yes.
because here in the university we did some
Experiments on virtual mobility, and people really enjoyed to be involved in that kind of experiment, and they say the same as people who try the regular mobility, the physical mobility. the students, they say almost the same. It was very insightful. It was a very cultural learning experience, whatever. So what I'm asking you is, do you foresee some measures to improve and to strengthen the Erasmus virtual mobility?
Now, we as an EU institution, we don't deal with Erasmus, no? I mean, we don't manage. We look at all what is happening through Erasmus in the countries, no? To learn from what is being developed at... Now, when it comes to the virtual communities, now, we know that everybody, we have also our virtual communities on the themes that we work, no? For example, teacher professional development, and then we have also for the national qualification framework, we have for the technology and innovation in education, all the big pillars of the EU framework. Now, because maybe our target group, as I said, our target group is more the formal system, no? That there is enthusiasm from these platforms, but there is also fatigue. I'm saying our experience in the sense that there are so many platforms that sometimes people don't have the time to participate, no?
This was not our students. They went, for instance, for Hume's University, and they did some curricular units in the University of Hume's, for instance. But so it was really an exchange of program. Our students, they did some courses in other universities, virtually.
But I think it's, I mean, for us, it's considered very, but I don't know Erasmus itself, how much it's support. That I don't know, honestly, how much you know yourself, no?
There is no financial support for virtual mobilities. No.
That I don't know. I haven't come across, no, from the cases we look at. So.
Yes, no, I'm suggesting, I'm saying that we need this kind of support because Erasmus is for all. And I think we can, we need to take advantage of Erasmus program that support also virtual. This is what
I'll look for that and I'll answer, no? With the people, I will look for that because I'm pretty sure in all the different programs, there must be, so I'll look for that and I'll respond. Huh? I will do that. Okay. So I don't have to say, I mean, I just thank you because I took so much from you and it has been a real privilege, real privilege. Thank you also for the great work and the examples and enthusiasm, no? It's has been a special occasion.
Yes, many thanks for It has been a pleasure, and Lida put several challenges in the table. What are how could the education pay attention to the collective, but also to the individual needs of people? And today people talks a lot about education for change. So we also need to think about that, how education can contribute for change, because sometimes teachers are feel a kind of paradox, even at the higher education, between policies and what is done in these inside institutions, and what the policies expect that institutions do, and somehow it's not fits these two fields, and sometimes even in higher education we feel that sometimes what we study and the contributions that research put in the table are not quite understood by policies. Just a small final word. For instance, I was in a discussion in the morning in a parallel session talking about education for adult education, and I asked how distance education can fit the needs of adults even in secondary school, because one problem is absenteeism. So if people cannot go to the school, how can what challenges and what strategies can we find to change the situation? Because we cannot do always the same and expect that something will change. To change, we have to do something different. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, thank you.